How many people do we have? Holy smokes, 51 people? Welcome, welcome, welcome. And how embarrassing that we had technical difficulties with all my wonderful webinar people. So at least we got it up and running. Welcome, welcome. The handout is 8 pages. So if you copy it double-sided, it's only 4 pieces of paper. But the nice thing about it is all the notes that are going to be on, that you're going to see on the screen on this PowerPoint. So this is a fun one. This is one of those classic examples. Whenever you would do term papers and research papers in college, you always did so much more research than you could fit into a paper. And on this one, I kind of fit all my research into the paper. So you're going to love it. You're going to love it. And this is perfect time. This weekend is going to be lovely. Sunday is supposed to be a beautiful day. Humidity is going to go away. It's going to be wonderful to be out in the garden. I have that day off, so I'm going to be in my own garden doing some transplanting, and I'll tell you about it as we're going through. So here we go, everybody. I'm going to go through the presentation like I always do. Oh, pardon me. I'm Jennifer Brennan. I'm the horticulture information specialist here at Chalet. I've been here 30 years, 30 and a half. Ooh, you shouldn't start saying those halves, should you? And what I like to do is do the presentation and then answer all of the questions at the end. And so if you will put, oh my gosh, we're up to 62. Welcome, 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 everybody. Okay. Those of you who started late missed my technical difficulties. Aren't you glad? Me too. All right, so put your questions and answers in the Q&A column. The chat box, it's more difficult for me to keep it real organized. So if you have questions, I'll give you the answers in the Q&A. So go ahead and type those in, and I'll check them at the end of the presentation. Hopefully, I will answer all the questions as we're going through it. So now it is 3 after 10. So the intros are done, and I'm going to get a sip of water because I deserve it after technological difficulties. I've been kind of fussing with this for 20 minutes. Oh, God. Oh. And my Yeti is back filled with ice water. So we're good, we're good, we're good. All right, so now let me share the screen. Here we go. I'm sharing the screen now. Oh, it's a good sign. It's going to be able to be shared. Don't you love it when it works? It's working. All right, so then I'm going to start from the beginning. All right. Here we go. Oh, come on, beginning. There we go. All right, we're good, we're good, we're good. And we're up to 68 viewers. Woohoo! All right, okay, let's do this, come back. Okay, so dividing and transplanting garden plants. And I'm Jennifer Brennan, the Chalet horticulturist. And, oh gosh, now I'm hitting too many buttons. Okay, so the whole reason for doing this presentation is we like to let people, decide what's the best way to get more of the plants that you love. And the simple answer is divide the ones you have. On the other hand, it's not the only reason to divide. Sometimes plants need to be divided up, and they'll let you know when it's time. And after this presentation, you'll know all that. The good news is the process is really simple and it's really easy. It's really easy to do. And it looks a little different depending on what the roots of the different plants are that you're working with. So I'm going to walk you through, these techniques. Okay, so the basics to make sure that you divide your plants in the right way and the right time are, number one, you want to see the signs. Look for the signs that the plant's telling you that they need to be divided. And the indicators, those usually indicators that the plant is getting overcrowded in the location where it's growing. And those indicators are smaller leaves than you've seen in previous seasons, clumps, that are dying out in the center. And what we call that the donut hole effect. So you have the circle of where your plants are, and the center is dead. And we call that the donut hole. And then there are also fewer flowers and smaller flowers. And that, actually, is the indicator that it's time to divide. All right. Now, the timing and the technique, there's several slides about timing and technique. So it's really important when you're dividing perennials that you get the timing and the technique right. That could be death to the plant if you're not doing the right technique. They're the healthiest plants. Perennial plants are the healthiest and most productive when they're young and when they have room to spread out. And you can rejuvenate even the oldest residents in the garden by occasionally dividing them. And I have this cool, on the handout, the very last pages are the lists of the different plants in the different ways to divide them. And I'll get to that. So don't worry, you've got it all in your handout, and I'm going to cover it. All right. Now, timing and technique. Don't wait until the plant has become decrepit, or monstrous, huge to divide it. The rule of thumb is when it looks its best, you want to divide it at the end of that year. I know, it's hard. That's a hard one to swallow, but that's really the best. That's really the best. So you want to watch for those early signs of trouble when the center of the plant has smaller leaves, fewer flowers, the whole plant has fewer flowers, or the weaker blooming, there are weaker blooming stalks at the outer edges. Okay, this is a good example in the photo right here. This is a Sedum Autumn Joy, and you can see how the center is died out, and the plant is just is falling open. And so this one probably should have been divided two seasons ago. So the other row is when the plant runs out of growing room on its edges, and there's nowhere to go but into the crowns and the stems of its neighbor plants. So here we go. Now you want to start at the drip line when you're doing the dividing or the transplanting, and to lift a perennial, with minimal root damage, it's best to begin digging at that drip line. And that's where the foliage, the stems and the leaves are at one edge of the plant. Draw a line perpendicular to the ground, and that's considered the drip line. And the roots generally extend out that far, to the drip line, oftentimes even further out from the drip line if we have heavy clay soil. But digging there gives you, a kind of a guideline, and then it lets you lift the plant with most of its roots intact. So I like to always use a garden fork and just dig it around the whole circle around the edge of that drip line. And then by using a fork, you're not severing as many of the roots, but you'll be able to lift the plant up. So you can either dig a trench around the clump, cleanly severing any roots, with like, I like those narrow spades that are flat, square and flat. They're actually called Perennial Spades, and it's not as wide as a standard spade. It's usually only this is 6 inches from here to here. It's usually only about 5 inches, wide, and you can just dig all the way around. Okay, so when you're at the edge, you want to kind of cut in at an angle. And then dig under the clump from various points all around the edge, so that you can use leverage to pop the plant out of the ground. For really large, heavy plants, you may first have to, dig a trench, then slice straight down the middle center of the plant to cut it in half, or even quarter it to be able to lift it out if the plant's that big. I've had hostas that I've divided that were huge, and there was no way I could lift the root ball up because they were so big. And so you divide them into quarters and then just lift each quarter out. Okay. Next slide here. Okay, now there's seasonal handling differences. So in early spring, I like to divide while the new growth is still low to the ground. so that, the handling of the stems is usually not an issue. So just when the shoots are coming out of the ground, hostas are a great example of that. A great time to divide hostas is just when the shoots are coming out of the ground. It's easy, to see where they are, see where the edge is, and then not damage any of the leaves because they're attached to stems. They're just shoots coming out of the ground. In summertime, you might need to tie the stems together, and that's with twine, and before lifting the plant up out of the ground to avoid damaging during digging. And that's really easy to do. Just tie them and bundle them. I usually wrap it 2 times and tie it with a bow, and so it's easy to untie. And then in fall, I usually cut the plants back before digging them for division, because those leaves are gonna be dying back anyway. So I usually, cut all the leaves back and then divide the plant. So those are the seasonal handling differences. Okay, so I just realized my title isn't showing like I want. Let me do something here. Okay, right. I want to get that out of the way. All right, so you want to divide. It's best to divide when the weather is cool. So really, perennials can be divided any time of the year, if you give the plant the appropriate care afterwards. So, I mean, even in this hot, horrible summer, you could have divided, but it takes a lot of watering care and attention to that watering detail. For the best return on your time and the quickest reestablishment of perennials, I like to divide when the soil is warmer than the air temperature for at least part of every 24-hour period. So that means waiting until fall when the temperatures are in the low 70s, early 60s, and that's usually about the same temperature that the soil is. So the rule of thumb in most seasons is that the soil is 10 degrees cooler than the air temperature. But boy, this year it's going to be an odd one. Like last week, our soil temperatures were 81 degrees. That's hot enough to kill cool season turfgrass roots. And so that's why our soils, our lawns look so horrible. But that's next week's lecture. So let's stay with this. Okay, so the best time is just before the peak daffodil season in the spring when they're blooming, and then early fall, right after the nights start getting cool. Okay, the reason this is really beneficial is these conditions allow the roots of the division to grow while the tops stay low and they're out of the sun and the wind. I like to prefer to divide in the fall rather than the spring, because the plants have more time to set new roots before having to grow in an intense heat. If you're dividing in the spring, boy, it can get so hot so early here. So I love doing it in the fall. Anywhere between August 15th and September 15th is ideal, because then they still have 8 to 10 weeks to get rooted and get the roots established before the ground freezes solidly. So I divide the fall bloomers in September, but I let them bloom, undisturbed. Excuse me. You can, if you have to divide fall bloomers, I like to let them bloom first and then divide afterwards. Divide that afterwards. Otherwise, I'll wait and divide them in the spring. If they're really late bloomers. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh, I did something silly. I'm pushing too many buttons. Here we go. There we go. Now, okay, here we go. All right, so you want to keep the roots cool and moist whenever you're doing these divisions. So ideally, 50% humidity and 50 degrees temperature are ideal if you're going to hold divisions until you can get them back in the ground. And good examples of that are like hostas and daylilies. So if you can wait to those ideal conditions, 50 and 50% humidity. So I like to put them in a bucket or a box, like a cardboard box in a cool shaded place, such as a garage. Or I have a great big pine tree in my backyard, so I'll put them under the pine tree. And then I'll cover with newspaper that's been moistened to keep them from having excess moisture loss. You can sprinkle the water to dampen. You can sprinkle water to dampen that newspaper. If this seems to be drying out during the whole time, you just don't want to pour water directly on the plants or on the roots. Okay, if despite your best efforts, your divisions dry out, just soak them in a bucket for about an hour before replanting them. So it's they're usually pretty tough. Now, whenever you dig out things, have your organic matter and topsoil. I like to do a mix of like 50-50 topsoil, or actually not 50-50, more 1/4 of the existing soil and or topsoil if I have to replenish when I've dug up a lot, and then and actually 1/4 organic matter. So I like to measure it with whatever digging utensil I'm using, whether if it's a shovel or a trowel, one of those to 3 or 4 of topsoil. And then that's what you're going to replenish, an area. So the rule of thumb is if you remove a wheelbarrow full of perennials, then you should put a wheelbarrow of a compost mix back in the site and before replanting to renew the soil and to stay to have ahead of any pest problems, and then to maintain any fertility. So without the additions, the plants, they won't have the advantage of being renewed, and then they won't have fertile soil. You have to have fertile soil. That's what they need. They need fertile soil in the bed and when they're being planted. So if you put them back without doing that, then you have a real disadvantage in terms of the drainage and the air circulation of the soil. Okay, so now, all right. After dividing, you want to replant the pieces that are at most 20 to 25% of the original clump. So smaller sections grow more vigorously and they will produce stronger and longer lasting blooms. So like this example here is dividing a hosta, and those are pieces that have about 7 growing points in each clump, and that will yield you the best results. Now, perennials multiply exponentially. One stem is really likely to triple or quadruple itself each year. So that's why it's really important to do this division. So if all you want to do is cut an overgrown clump in half, it will double in size next season, and you will probably need to be dividing it again the following year. So kind of keep that in mind. I know a lot of us think, I want it to look good, so I don't want to divide it into too many pieces. But if you like doing the division, be aware that you'll have to do it more frequently. Okay. And I just looked at the number of attendees, you guys. There's 93 people on board. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, here we go. Now, take extra care when a plant's in flower. And you'll often read, and I've often read, that you shouldn't divide plants when they're blooming. But if you've got a clump that needs it and you need to do it, it's not going to kill the plant if you do it. At worst, when new roots form, they use the same nutrients that go to flowers, so the flowers will get aborted. So don't worry about that. You have to understand that plants in bloom may not be as capable of growing as quickly and producing new roots as non-blooming plants. So another rule of thumb is just to prune all the flowers off. That's hard to do if you've been waiting all season for them to bloom. But if you have to get things done, you get things done. I've actually done this in September with the Japanese anemones, those fall blooming anemones and asters, that are in bloom, and then I've also done it in April, like this photo here with the pasque flowers. And then also lungworts are in bloom in the spring when they're at their pink, and you can get by doing it. Okay, I haven't lost any divisions yet. I've also divided in late spring and summer when they're flowering. So if you give it extra care, and you know that common sense kind of dictates, such as attentive watering, you know, and or shade them during the middle of the day, the plants will do just fine. But the most important thing is that watering, making sure you're watering it well enough. And I keep talking about the concept of dividing the root ball into quarters and then holding your watering wand over quadrant one, counting to five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out loud, and then quadrant 2, count to 5, quadrant 3, count to 5, quadrant 4, count to 5, and do that 2 or 3 times in a row. So you've really saturated the entire root ball from the top to the bottom. So that's really important. Okay. I just realized, hold on, you guys. I just realized I'm not on the screen with you. What happened? What happened? Oh, this PowerPoint stuff. Okay, let me check what's going on. I'm going to stop the share for a minute. Hold on. Oh my goodness, the video is off. There I am. Were you guys able to see the PowerPoint? I think we're good. Okay, we're going to go back to the share again. Excellent. Okay. Boy, I apologize. And I've got so many people watching. I apologize. Okay, now where is my share again? I apologize. Here we go. Here we go. I hope everyone had a cup of coffee. Oh my God, it went all the way back to the, shoot. Here we go. And I'm on the screen. All right, here we go. So now when you do divide, let me go back and see what happened. Oh, here we go. We're good. All right. Pardon me for my little laughs. 91 people. Oh my. Okay. Okay. You want to keep only the healthiest pieces of the plant. So so the division on the right came from a really crowded center of an old clump of Astrantia. And it has, you know, fewer roots than the piece from the outside edge, which is over on the left. So the division from the center will grow, but it won't grow as fast as an outer one. So I always like to use the outer segments of, you know, of the plant when I'm doing a division. And you know, you can see how healthy the roots are when you do that. Also look for poor signs of health. Or signs of poor health, and like this cut peony stem shows a symptom of disease. See how there's rot in the middle of it? Replanting it would proliferate the disease. So check all your pieces before you replant them. Okay, now, and again, make sure you're keeping all the healthiest pieces. If you would run across, this is a hosta that has what we call southern blight. You see any fungal mycelium like that, dispose of it, like when you're digging a plant up. So you don't want to wait until the plant is declining. You don't want to wait till it has a real dead center, or if it has diseases or pests, you know, you don't want to wait for that. And you don't want to propagate that, because you'll propagate the pests also and the diseases also. So what usually, again, look at the healthiest pieces, which are usually the outside sections. That's the newest, youngest part of the plant. Again, always watch for discolored stems and or eroded crowns, like this disease section of this hosta. Okay, now when you're replanting the divisions, you want to put them over spread them over a wide hole and a wide area, and then spread those roots out wide over. And then I like to set up a mound of soil. So I have a mound of soil here, and then I set the roots so they're just hanging down over that mound. And then you want to make sure the crown is right at grade. Now, if it's a peony, the eyes on the crown should be 2 inches below the grade, the level of the soil. But this is an example of showing that mound where you're resting those roots right down on top of it. Okay, so in the next growing season, the top of the plant will be as wide as the roots are at the time of the planting. So you can see how we spaced all the sections out evenly, and then you want to ensure that you spread out the roots so they don't overlap each other, because you don't want them to compete with other divisions. And so this is a great example. These are all different hostas that were being planted. Now you want to spread out those divisions, like I just mentioned. You want to place the division onto a hole. It's at least as wide as its roots when it's spread out. And don't turn a root tip up. You want them to point down, because you want them to grow down. There's geotropism, which is something that all plants have, so the roots are know to grow down instead of out and up. And so if you help them by aiming those roots down, that's why I say, make a mound and then have those roots set on top of it. Then that helps them naturally, get established. The root tip, and this is all the details. You have the root tip growth is regulated in part by chemicals that are flowing down from the tips of the leaves and the stems to the roots. And, all the gravity is involved, as well as the geotropism. And, and if the tip of the root is up, that flow is interrupted. So you want to have it, you want to try to be as natural as possible, and okay, here we go. Let's keep going right here. All right. So now, when you dig up a perennial, I'm going to move this time. Again, you want your roots to be your guide. And it's the types of roots that designate how to do the divisions. And you'll see that the root systems fit into 5 basic types. Roots that form clumps or offsets, and I'm going to show you details of this. Plants that have surface roots, rhizomes, those are the underground stems that are roots. Then you have underground running roots. And then you have tap roots. Those are roots that go straight down, and then woody roots. So how you proceed depends on the type of roots that the plant has. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. Here we go. So offsets. Hostas are classic examples of root systems that form offsets. So to divide a plant whose roots form offsets, and those are actually small plants that grow at the base of a larger plant and then have roots that grow into the ground. And so you just snap the connection between any of the sections to obtain a piece that has ample roots. You can see how I've got my knife here with my gloves, and I'm cutting a section of that stem with the roots attached to it. Some of the denser clumps may have to be cut apart. And the plants that form offset roots are asters, coneflowers, hostas. This is a hosta in the picture, and coreopsis. These are the easy ones to divide, really easy. Surface roots, a lot of perennials have roots that run on or just below the surface of the soil. And those are things like Monarda. Monarda can get in big trouble in your garden because those surface roots will run through all of the rest of your plants in your garden. And so what happens is they form new crowns and roots when they reach open spaces. So when the roots or these stems reach an open space, then a shoot comes up and then more roots grow down. And if you cut between any of those stems, you'll have a division with its own set of stems and its own root. Okay, and these plants are Monardas, black-eyed Susans, any of the creeping sedums, and then the creeping speedwells, the Veronicas. They spread by surface roots. Now taproots, these can be divided by using a sharp knife. You have to use a sharp knife, and then you slice down the length of the root. And this is a tricky one. These are tricky. So every piece of the taproot that has at least one eye on it, and maybe a few side shoots is a viable division. So the plants that have tap roots are balloon flowers, the platycodon, butterfly weed, Asclepias, cushion spurges, the euphorbias, and oriental poppies. These plants usually have a bad reputation about being a little difficult. So, but you can see in the photo how that whole taproot was just slit right down the middle, and you can see the cut end in the hand that's up, and then the knife is on the section on the cut end below. Okay, those are taproots. Here's a good example of, of a taproot right here. Okay. Now, underground running roots. So the underground running roots develop suckers, as they go beyond the shade of the clump. And those suckers can be cut away from the main plant, or you can actually dig up the main plant and cut away any piece with an eye or a sucker that's already formed. And plants that have underground running roots include hardy geraniums. That's why they'll fill out and form a nice ground cover area. Japanese anemones, ostrich ferns. Ostrich ferns have a bad reputation of having underground running roots. And then some poppies, the plume poppies, excuse me, the Maclea plume poppies. Plume poppies also have a bad reputation. So, but you just follow it and then dig them up and divide them that way. Now, woody perennials often form roots when the stems rest on the ground, or actually when if they get buried by accumulating mulch. So then new roots form. So you can make a new plant by simply cutting between the rooted stem and the mother plant. And this is showing on this candy top. This is Iberis. And then euonymus, also they have woody roots. Lavenders have woody roots, and salvias have woody roots. Okay, now you need to dig the plants out of the ground to divide them. And so a rule of thumb is to dig 4 to 5 inches away from the base of the plant, and then that way you get the majority of the roots as you lift the clump out of the ground. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to use a garden fork when doing this, and I go around the whole circle of the plant with that garden fork, sticking in as deep as I can, and then using the handle to kind of leverage it up to pop it up. You don't cut as many roots that way; they gently get pulled up out of the ground, and you almost end up having the root system intact better. And a lot of times, like this is a phlox right here in this photo. And, a lot of times you don't have to dig the whole clump out if you're just taking a division. So as you dig up one side, you'll see how it breaks away. You can see how this part of the plant just broke away. And then as it broke, you could grab that clump and pull those roots out so they're not completely severed. The other way, if you don't want to just take sections out, is to simply, tilt the whole mass of the soil back on the blade of the spade to see the roots, and then break or cut off, into the old sections, and then a lot of times the soil just falls away. So, okay, so if it doesn't fall away, you need to scrape or shake off the excess soil so that you have a little wiggle room to gently pull or cut the divisions out. I always like to encourage people to have watered the plants 1 to 2 days before you do this, because then they're hydrated and then they survive the stressful situation a bit longer. Here's a great example, of a plant that was dug up, and then using a fork, and then it pried all those roots up out of the soil, and it was easy to shake the soil off of those. And then you have to do the dividing tip is sometimes the roots are easy to break apart with your hand or with the shovel. But for tough roots, like this is a Helibore, sometimes you need to use a strong, like a soil knife with a serrated edge to make it a little bit easier. And you can see how this is one of those hocho knives that has a serrated edge on it, and you're just using the serrated edge to saw through that division. And this was divided into just thirds. So look at the roots, after you dig the plant out and take a look at the roots before, starting to separate the plant. Again, you want to make sure you know exactly what type of roots they have. And a lot of times, if you don't know what the roots are, you have to dig them up to find out. So, so then you make the correct divisions and cuts based on those different types of roots like we were just talking about. Okay, and I'm going to show you, I have good illustrations showing the three categories: spreaders, clumpers, plants with woody crowns. And this is a great example. This is bugleweed or ajuga, and this is one of the classic spreaders. And so you can actually find the new crowns, look for the crowns from the spreaders, and then sever the root in between the mother plant and the new crown, and then dig it up with the garden fork. And it comes, it's like brand new little mini plants, and then with their roots, and you just replant them and spread them out. Okay. These are clumpers. This is, classic, daylilies or clumpers, like, no, excuse, these aren't daylilies. This is more like, this is the hosta. So you dig up the plant and it has these fibrous or spreading roots. This is a daylily. And then, then you dig up the whole plant and then pull or cut the root ball into those thirds. And it's, or you just dig out a chunk along the edge. I like to dig up the whole clump because I like to center the division back in the center of the hull. I know I'm weird, but I don't like to have a large clump here and an empty space here. It will fill back in, but that's just people are different on how they like to do that. Okay, so then the woody crowns. And this is one of the hardy geraniums. And so you want to leave at least one set of leaves attached to the main root segment, and then replant the rest of the root. So this is like with the taproot decision. You're going to take these cuttings and leave one. Some plants, these are coral bells, these are heucheras, and they have that woody crown. So you dig up the whole plant, shake off the soil, and then cut off sections of the crown, each with a few leaves, and then replant them, individually. Okay, when's the best time? Okay, choose that cool, cloudy day to dig the perennials out of the ground. Spring or fall is usually less stressful than in the heat of summer. I really don't like to encourage people to do it, especially this summer. This summer has just been obscene, totally obscene. Okay, I'm watching the time here. Okay, so now, if you have to divide in hot weather, a lot of times people come in, they're moving from their house, and they want to take their plants with them, and it's the middle of the summer. So if it's not practical, then even though it's 90 degrees and sunny, here's some of the secrets if you have to do that. So like if you go out today, you have to go out today and do some transplanting. Start by watering the plant, and then also water the area where it's going to be planted, and do that before the day before you dig. Okay, then the next day you're going to cut the foliage back by half. And by doing that, then when you've divided the root system, that smaller root system doesn't have as much to support at the top, and it won't go into stress that way. Okay, so now the next thing, dig the hole where the new divisions are going to be set. Dig that hole first, and then you're ready to dig the plant out of the ground, and divide it, as you would any time of the year. And then once you get the division, put it right into the new spot. Fill the hole halfway with soil, and then soak it thoroughly. We call that mucking it in. And you pour the water and let it drain. Pour the water, let it drain. Pour the water, let it drain. Do that 3 times, and then fill the rest with soil to the top of the hole, and then water it and let it drain. And then, keep the area really moist for, I would say, I would watch it for the next 2 weeks. Treat it like an intensive care patient to make sure it's staying consistently moist right where the original root ball is, because the soil around it can be moist, but the part where the roots are can dry out so easily. So you want to water right where the division is. Okay. And then, if the plants, you're seeing the plants are wilting at the late in the evening, water it again, and then if it's really hot and sunny, protect it from sun if you can. So those are the pen. Now, this is a great example of daylilies that have been, been divided. And you can see it was a huge clump, and then they were divided into sections of 5 to 7, shoots, and then with the roots, the roots involved. Now, timing is really important. You can divide either in early spring, like I said, or early fall. Some can be very, 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 very picky. So, and I have this list that shows the optimal time to divide specific perennials, and it's S for spring, F for fall. Okay, and here we go. So see, divide these plants by hand, and you have this list. And so see, S and F means spring or fall, and then the asterisk means if you can do it by hand, that's best. And then, so here's showing you how to divide it by hand rather than doing a knife. So then when you divide it by hand, you're teasing those roots apart, okay? Here's another division, by hand, showing by hand. And you can see as you gently just pull them apart, you get intact roots rather than severed roots. Okay, and this is a daisy. Okay, these are the fibrous roots. Okay, fibrous roots, you can cut up the rhizomes and tubers with a knife. So these are things like arums, Virginia, caladiums, calla lilies, corydalus, dahlias, elephant ears, irises, lady ferns, lily of the valley, rhubarb, spurge, and wild ginger. You cut those with a sharp knife. Okay. And then again, showing, we had this picture earlier, but just showing how you use a hocho knife to just saw right through. Now, when you have really woody plants, okay, Siberian iris can get really woody. You want to slice apart the woody crowns with a handsaw. I know that sounds really severe, but things like Amsonia, Astilbes, really established Astilbes, Acanthus, Actea, Liatris, gay feather, goat's beard, Eupatorium, jopieweed. And I actually had to use a handsaw to cut a very overgrown hosta apart. And it looks serious, but it really works great. And I have an excellent, I have an excellent saw. It's actually a pruning saw. It's a silky saw, very sharp blades. And boy, it just went right through. It just went right through. And you can see just, again, cutting the, different plants apart, and you great divisions. Again, dividing hostas. See, the roots are real thick, and then the sections between the plants are almost woody. And you can see how this was sawed apart, and where the two sections were together. And it was impossible to try to break them apart. So that pruning saw really did a good job, doing this one. And that clump, I divided that clump into 7 sections, and it filled a whole bed in a shade that I had to get replanted, and they look gorgeous. It was 3 years ago, and they look really gorgeous. Okay, so now all of these perennials can be divided with a spade or pitchforks. And the way that works is to take a spade, just stick it right down the center of the plant, and then rock it back and forth and pry it apart. You can do 2 spades, put them together, stick them in the same place, and then pull them apart. You can also do that with garden forks, where you stick it in and then pull them apart. And it works great. It works really well. Now, there are some perennials that are best not divided at all. Alyssums don't like it. Candy tuft don't like to be divided. You can transplant them, but don't divide them. Dianthus don't like it. Delphiniums don't. Foxgloves, euphorbia, salvias don't like to be divided. Geraniums, these are annual geraniums, so those aren't perennials here. But Santolina, lavenders, lychnis, rosemary, Russian sage, eryngium or sea hollies, artemisia, and sweet peas and trillium. Those are best not divided. You just have to buy new ones, on those, or just transplant them. And we're at the end. It is 15 minutes till. There are a lot of questions. I'm going to just end the PowerPoint with happy dividing and transplanting. Stay tuned. I'm going to go right to the questions right now. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and then go right to the Q&A column. We still have 86 people that have stayed on board. Okay, here, Marion Wolf, you look wonderful. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. And thank you so much for the handout. I love getting all your research. Oh, very nice. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. And then April Arnold, when is the best time to transplant hydrangeas? Can hydrangeas be divided? The answer is no. Hydrangeas can't be divided. And the best time to transplant a hydrangea, this doesn't really fit with perennials, but it is garden plants, is how we talked about it. The best time to transplant a hydrangea, it would be the opposite season from when it blooms. So the paniculatas are all in bloom right now. So you would transplant those in the spring. Any of the macrophyllus that start blooming early, you would do that in in the fall, or target September 15th. Great question. Great question. Thank you. Then this is Shelley. I have a mass of astilbes that I have attempted to transplant this spring. I can't differentiate between individual plants. I removed several plants from the edges of the clump and transplanted them, and they flopped over and subsequently died. Shelley, I don't think it was because of how you did the division. I think it's just because of the heat and the drought situation we had this year. And astilbes they're so sensitive to drought and temperature. So when I was talking about it in the presentation, I hope you saw the part about astilbes have the running stems, and then you just follow the stem and then find the new plant and dig it up and sever that underground stem. I hope that helped you. And don't blame yourself. This summer, it's all Mother Nature's fault with this really bad heat, and just extreme heat we've been having. So terrible. Okay, now this is Cindy. You said to divide when temperatures reach low 70s and 60s. Do you mean nighttime or daytime temperatures? Ooh, that's a good question, Cindy. It's daytime temperatures. Daytime temperatures. That's the better rule of thumb. Okay, that one's done. And then this is an anonymous. Well, we have access to the PowerPoint. I don't know what that means. You mean you're gonna get a copy of the PowerPoint? No, that's why I do the handout. That's why I do the handout with all this is all the information that was everything that was on the PowerPoint is in the handout. So yeah, okay. But anonymous attendee, this is recorded and it's on our YouTube channel, the Chalet YouTube channel, and it's all of our virtual sessions are posted there, and all you have to do is go to YouTube and then type in Chalet Virtual Learning and then dividing and transplanting garden plants, and you can watch the PowerPoint. You can watch this whole tape again. Okay, then Marion, yes, we can see the PowerPoint. Thank you. Oh, that was when I thought oh my gosh, just when I think I've really mastered Zoom. Unbelievable. Okay, Karen, your butterfly bush is very tall our butterfly bush is very tall and wide. Is there any special way to divide these? Well, butterfly bush is one of those, it's considered a dieback shrub. So they're more difficult. Sometimes you will see an offshoot, coming from an underground stem on a butterfly bush, and you can divide that. You can divide that and take that apart. But it's not advised to take that, that plant and try to cut it down the center to do that. That's a great question. That was a really good question. Oh goodness, I skipped an anonymous. If I divide a hosta in half, Can I keep the remaining half in the ground? Yes, you can. And I think your question came before I got to that part, or maybe that was just when I got to the part. Yes, you can leave half in the ground and take the other half out. Out of that. That was a great question. All right, then I answered the butterfly bush one. Okay. All right. See, guys, I'd like to do the question and answer column so I can keep it in order. And I'm even not doing that very good, am I? Okay, here we go. Here's Sherry. My hydrangea has baby plants sprouting below that seem connected to the parent plant. How do you separate those plants from the parent plant? That's like a woody plant that's sending an offshoot, or they also call that suckering growth. And so what you do is look, and again, wait for the cooler temperatures and then just follow along, dig up the baby plant. And as you lift it with the garden fork or with that shovel, you'll see where the roots are, and you'll see where the underground stem is. And then you just sever that. You can use a hocho knife or a pruning saw, or even a spade to chop it. These are great questions. You guys are wonderful. And okay, here we go. And then another anonymous attendee. I didn't see hydrangea on your list. Well, because hydrangeas are more woody plants, and this was more for perennials. Okay, so that's why I didn't. That's a woody plant. Here's another. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Where would you put summer allium on these lists? Oh, summer allium it has tuberous roots. Not tuberous roots. It has fleshy. They're halfway between fleshy roots and fibrous roots, and you just dig up the whole clump and then divide it into sections. Yeah, that's a great question. I thought I had it on there. I guess. Oh, I did. I had it on one of the lists. Okay, here we go. And then here's Susan. Hi, Susan. How would you divide a large, low perennial geranium? Okay, you saw the perennial geraniums have those woodier stems. So you divide the whole thing up and then just cut sections so that it's almost like a taproot, where you have a section here that's growing, and then just do a sharp knife and divide down. So the roots here, and then roots go with that section and roots go with the other section. Yeah, so, all right. Great questions. You guys are excellent. Okay, so now this is Marie, and I'm watching the time. Oh, I'm staying right on schedule, everybody. It's 10:53. Do you always dig up the whole plant before dividing rather than cutting part of it away? Do you always remove the soil from the roots? Okay. I don't remove all the soil from all the roots. So I wanted to clarify that. You just remove some of the soil. So, and then you don't have to dig up the whole plant. You can just dig up sections on the edge, pull them apart, and then just fill soil back in around. And then what happens is the plant that is left, new segments will grow into the empty area. And so you don't have to dig up the whole thing. You can take divisions. That's what we call it, divisions and transplants. Okay, good question. Thank you so much. Okay, now this is it's either Jamie or Jaime. More of the garden coach type questions. Wait, more of the garden coach type question. Oh, more of a garden type question. My potentia was destroyed by the rabbits this year. Oh, I hate rabbits, you guys. Almost like they took half of it, leaving behind half a healthy plant. I don't usually cut it back in the fall, but we'll cut it back. But will cutting back the entire potentia help it come back strong in the spring? Or will it only cause more trauma? Thank you. Look forward to all of these virtual sessions. That's so nice. That's so nice. Okay, on the potentia, I would leave the part that's there now until we get into the fall. And then what's going to happen is the part of the plant that's left it's still photosynthesizing, and it's still recharging the roots that are down below. And all that energy is going to go down into the roots. So I would wait until late fall, when all the foliage has dropped off the potentia. And then you can either, in the end of October or November, or in between that and March, that's when you're going to cut the rest of the plant back a third. and then hopefully it'll even up with the plant that was eaten off by the rabbits. And then Potentilla blooms and grows from new wood next spring. So you can either do that now, I mean, or at the end of the growing season, or wait to do that prune back until spring in March before the new growth starts. And that will really help the plant. And so, I mean, if you want it to look better, so it doesn't look like it's been attacked by the monster rabbits, wait till it goes a little dormant. You can prune the tips right now. And, and that will help it branch out. But any major pruning, do that anywhere between October and March, okay, to even the plant up. Great question. And I'm so sorry you had that problem with rabbits. They're just so awful, aren't they? One of the biggest problems I've been seeing all season. Okay, this is Lori. I have a Baptisia that has a taproot. Baptisias are known to have taproots. Baptisias hate to be transplanted. They hate being transplanted almost and more than peonies do. Okay, can this be divided, being that it has a taproot? Yes, it can. And I talked about taproot in the program. I hope that you saw that in the program. And if it can't easily be done, will the seed pods grow a new plant? And if it does, how to do that? Okay, you can divide a Baptisia up. I would only do it by third or by 1/2 or 1/3. And you can do that. Again, wait till the conditions are really premium. We have 60-degree temperatures during the day, and the cell temperature is kind of matching. And then if you try to grow it from seed, it's not going to come true to whatever the cultivar of the plant is. So if you have a named cultivar, you have to do divisions. And the other thing that that works well is just do cuttings and root cuttings. So, but that's a more involved project. Okay, here we go. Thanks for that great question. And then here's a question from Karen. When I logged in, you mentioned a handout with your research. Will you be sharing the handout? Thank you for this informative presentation. You are so welcome. Thank you. The handout came as a link to, it's a separate link on the email that had the link to get to the Zoom presentation. So look at that email again, and it should be there. If not, you can always email me at Jennifer B. It's Jennifer B, Jennifer B. My last name is Brennan, so it's our first name, last initial, at shalleynursery.com, and I'll send you the handout. I'll just forward it to you as an attachment. Okay, but it should be there were two links, on the email that came to you, confirming that you were coming to the webinar. Okay, thanks. And then here we go. Then PB, any tips to maintain mint in containers? I like my chocolate mint and spearmint. In late fall, the mass of roots in the containers are intimidating. Yeah, that's so easy. So in your containers, just take them out, divide that clump in half or quarters, put fresh potting mix in the soil in your container, and plant a new clump in. You can actually do that now, and they're so tough, they'll survive beautifully. So yeah, I keep a Mojito Mint going that I love. Absolutely. And then another one I love is called Kentucky Kernel, and it's the one they use to make the mint juleps down at the Derby, at the Kentucky Derby, and it's called Kentucky Kernel. And boy, they have such different fragrances. You just can't believe it until you're actually smelling them side by side. Great question. Okay, I'm right at 1 minute till 11. So here we go. Ramnasud, where are the handouts? Did I miss them? Okay, I mentioned that just a little earlier, answering another question. There were two separate links on the email that you got. And so you click on one and it downloads the handout. You click on the other one to come to the Zoom link, and it's there. If you don't find it on your email, send me an email at Jennifer B at Shelley Nursery, and I'll send the handout to you directly. And then here we go. Marcia, and okay, any tips on dividing sedges? Oh, sedges are easy. Sedges are really easy. They have a very fibrous root system. Just dig up the whole clump, divide them up, and then just plant them in quarters. Easy, easy, easy. Very easy, very easy. Okay, we're done with that. Here's another anonymous attendee. Where's the handout? I didn't see how to get that. Anonymous attendee, send me an email, jenniferb@shaleynursery.com, and I'll send you that. I'll send you that handout. It wasn't a link to get you to the Zoom, and a separate link for the handout. Shelley, thank you. This has been very informative. Well, thank you. Thank you for attending. We still have 63 people. Oh my God, I'm just so impressed. I'm so impressed. You know, they had stopped doing a lot of the webinars over the summer months because people were on vacations, and we got down, like the garden coach, we got down to, oh, I think it was 25 people each time, and maybe only 18. And so with the webinars, you know, it's so nice and rewarding to see how many people are signing up for this. Okay, and then this is Jennifer Swain. Hi, Jennifer. I have trouble sharing native milkweed. Few roots come out with the stem. Well, the native, I think you're talking about, are you talking about butterfly weed or the native, the swamp milkweed? They actually have a taproot, so they're a little difficult. They don't like to be moved too much. So you know, look at those notes and what I said about the taproot. You know, you're going to divide it down so that you have a shoot or an eye on each section of the taproot, and then divide that up. Okay, there we go. Next one. Thank you. You're awesome. This is PB. This lecture was very helpful and entertaining. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there with me with my PowerPoint goof up and oh my goodness. This is what keeps you humble. You know, Zoom. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Marcia, again, thank you for informative presentation. I look forward to dividing this fall. Oh, I'm so happy. That's my goal, to encourage you to go out there and divide. Fantastic. Thank you. And then super program. Thank you, Usha. Thank you so much. And then another anonymous, could hellebores, Lenten rose, be divided? Yes, they can. They have that woodier stem. And I may have missed this one on the list. If yes, should I do it this fall? Yes, you can. And I don't want to lose them. Very good. Yeah, it's more of a woody. It's a woodier. And a couple of the images in the presentation were the hellebores, and you can see they have a very fleshy root system off almost a woody kind of main trunk. Great questions, and there are just so many. There's so many different perennials that you really it's hard to really categorize all of them. But this was a pretty good attempt. Okay, could hellebores be divided? Oh, I did that already. Okay, cool. All right, and done. And here's another last question. I have a large plant named Hot Lips. Okay, and it's easy. It's ready in bloom. It's ready to bloom now. It is huge. Can I divide it late fall or early spring? This is called, it's Chelone, and Hot Lips is the cultivar, and it's Turtle Head is the common name of it. And I would wait till it finishes blooming and then divide it in late fall afterwards. Or you can also divide it in early spring. They're late to wake up though, so they're harder to see early in the spring. So mark the area so you know where it is, and if you don't do it in the fall, it's a very sturdy, tough plant. It's pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to divide and multiply. So okay, good. There's a couple of chats. What I'm going to do is I'm finished with the QA right now. I'm going to open the chat box just to see. Okay, and this is Celeste. Oh, answering yes. You could see the PowerPoint. Thank you, everybody. You are in so much trouble with this PowerPoint. It keeps me smiling. Oh, you are in so much trouble with this. It keeps me smiling. You are cute and so nice looking. Oh my gosh, thank you. You're so cute. Sue, can we view a recorded session again? Yeah, Sue, it's recorded and posted on the YouTube. And you just go to YouTube and then type in Chalet Virtual Learning and then the topic, and it pops right up. And then, okay, this is, I received the handout last night as an attachment in the email sent by Carly Thalman. Thank you for saying that, Carla. Thank you, thank you. Okay, maybe others have received it there too. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I should have looked at the chat box, shouldn't I? Okay, this is from Cindy. No questions here, just wanted to thank you. This was wonderful. P.S. I just realized that I hadn't I had a hand up the whole time. I saw your hand up, but aren't you proud of me that I was able to not ignore it, but just overlook it until the very end? You know, so not a problem. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think those are all the chats. Those are the chats. I have one more question. Thank you for a wonderful presentation today. Very informative and helpful. I enjoy everyone you do. Thank you so much. You all are so wonderful. You make this so worthwhile, and you make it worth dealing with all these crazy Zoom things and these Zoom situations. And Drew, I want everybody, if you can, if you can send an email to it's hello. It's hello at chaletsnursery.com. Okay, hello at chaletsnursery.com. Please send a thank you to Drew, and that's DREW, for saving the day once again with the technology issues. So we couldn't get connected to our main computer network. So at the last minute, he emailed my PowerPoint to me. So Drew saved the day, and that's why I was all flustered and all blushed, when I finally got signed on. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the summer. We only have one more farm track this season, and that's going to be next week. So they end after Labor Day, and we're going to have 3 more varieties of Japanese maples next week, just like we had 3 this week. And the farm truck is still here till noon. So there's some beautiful perennials, gorgeous, Roseanne, Geranium, moorgrass, autumn moorgrass, a great, oh my God, I'm just forgetting on the name, a great salvia. It starts with a C. It's one of the tallest ones. Beautiful, and just wonderful plants. So they're here until the farm truck leaves at noon. So you can get great deals. The prices are they're almost half price. So great offer. So everybody, 2 more questions. Let me go back and pull up the Q&A one more time before I sign off. And Mrs. Heidi, they're wonderful thank yous. And it's Marion Wolf again. Thank you so much. You all are wonderful. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for supporting Chalet's virtual learning and supporting me. I really appreciate it. All right. See you next time around.